They say dream high. Have you ever been wonder on what altitude live those who not just dream high but do? Have you ever asked yourself, who are they and what is their story? Here we combine feelings of those who managed to conquer this altitude and merit the honor to name it their home. Stalin high-riders or Stalinist skyscrapers for almost a half of century have been a matter of Muscovites' daydreaming and Kabbalistic ideas and inquiries. These legendary 7 skyscrapers are Hotel Ukraine, Kotelnicheskaya Embankment Apartments, the Kudrinskaya Square Building, the Hilton Moscow Leningradskaya Hotel, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Main Building, the main building of the Moscow State University, and the Red Gates Administrative Building. There were 2 more skyscrapers in the same style that were never built, the Zaryadye Administrative Building and the Palace of the Soviets. From the hazy time of Soviet Union, these 7 sisters were covered from the outside with admiring buzz and timid reprobation. But what they are inside, and how their tenants feel about living in the symbol of Stalin's epoch.
It's just an ordinary house for me. I spent here my best years with my wife and our children. I got this flat while I was working at the MCU as a pro-vice chancellor. They offered one more, but I rejected in spite of a big family. That time we had 3 little children. The more the merely. Generally, I don't communicate with neighbors at all. Well, a long time ago, I used to have friends here. We all worked together in Russian Science Academy and MCU. This place united us, people who worked a lot and whose job is valuable and meaningful for the country. There were no ordinary people in this house. It required to show yourself to good advantage. Sure, new people live here nowadays, but the atmosphere here, which is special, is changeless. It is noticeable that flats here are not for the selling, they are being kept across the generations, from the father to the son, and that's a good tradition which I would stick to. The only thing I do not appreciate is when they call these houses Stalinsiders, as I feel there is nothing about Stalin or the military dictatorship here. The only person who we should recall while speaking about this place is an architect who undoubtedly did a great work.
When we arrived here, there were only fields around us. When a school was built behind the 14-story building, all the kids who lived there went to that school. A third of our class was the kids from the house, and the other 2/3 from the neighboring villages. You know, it was a very wonderful school. The people here also are quite special, and it's very nice. Do you have a hobgoblin? No, not in this house, no. Are you sure? Well, we never met him. Because, you know, it happens quite often that you hear things in old houses, you see things. Well, it's quite a new house, it's only 50 years old. An old one is older than 100 years. Although, you know, the country house we bought recently certainly has a hobgoblin, because it's older than a century. Tell me, what are your relationships with neighbors like? You should have some strong ones. No, you know, this is actually quite interesting. I'm not a very sociable person. I don't know many people. When we were kids, we knew our school friends, and we knew their parents and apartments they lived in. And that was it. I think the only bonding moment we had with our neighbors was during the fightings, the meetings, when everyone from the building just went out and then gathered at our apartment. We were sitting at the same table and we were talking and saying, "This is so great. The meetings are one thing, but we should gather more often just like as neighbors." And everyone was agreeing with that. But of course it never happened. Everyone forgot about it and just went back to their closed life. We have some connections with other families though, but no more than that. I only knew the neighbors from the school. I don't know many of them now. Their names, who lives in which apartment, nothing. We used to live in another building, and our apartment was on the 12th floor before. And when you were going down or up on an elevator through this big tower, people would join you and you start to remember them. This one is from this floor, this one is from that. You start to recognize people, you say hello to them, but you don't make friends and meet them outside the elevator. Nothing closer than that. I don't know, maybe some families here have made friendships, but it somehow didn't happen to us. Despite the sort of uncertain status of these apartments, people just don't want to leave them. For them it can stay this way, but it's nice to live here. But it's not possible for all our kids because there are too many of them and they all can't live in this apartment.
We really wanted to move here because living and studying in the same building is great. You can go to classes 5 minutes before they start, skip boring ones and go home to sleep or eat. It's very convenient. There is a great view from the window here. I think the best view in Moscow. I don't want to leave this place. I have no idea how are we going to move out when I graduate. There is a peculiar smell in the main building. You can't feel it in this room, but when you go to the canteen, you can smell it. It smells from people, from things, books. What does it smell like? I don't know. They say it's dead bodies, that the physics are experimenting with them, but I think it's because the building is very old. It's almost 60 years old.
Just the oldness?
Yes,
It's the smell of knowledge.
let's hope so.